You're probably richer than you think, and it's making you miserable. I know, that sounds like a contradiction, but stick with me for a second. Because the gap between what Canadians actually have and what they think they have is one of the most financially dangerous things in this country right now. Today, I'm breaking down the exact numbers, how much you need to earn and how much you need to own to be in Canada's top 10%, top 5%, and top 1%. Real figures from Statistics Canada, the CRA, and the Parliamentary Budget Office. But I'm also going to show you something that the income charts never tell you: why most of Canada's so-called wealth is locked in a trap that millions of people can't actually access. Let's start with the baseline. The median individual income in Canada is $44,200. Half of all Canadians earn less than that. Half earn more. If you're somewhere around that number, you are the definition of average. Now, the average full-time salary gets quoted a lot. It sits around $67,000, but that number is pulled upward by high earners at the top. The typical full-time Canadian worker earns closer to $60,000. Include part-time workers, and the median drops further. So if you earn $65,000 or $70,000 and feel like you're falling behind, the data says otherwise. Like, you are ahead of the majority of people in this country. It just doesn't feel that way. And we're going to get to why. To crack into the top 10% of individual earners in Canada, you need a total income of $125,945. For households, that number sits around $186,000. So if you and your partner are both working full-time, pulling in around $190,000 combined, your household is already in the top 10% of Canada. Let that sink in. Not the top 10% of Bay Street, the top 10% of the entire country. And yet, almost nobody in that bracket describes themselves as rich. They're stretched on a mortgage, paying $2,800 a month in childcare, watching their grocery bill climb every single week. Top 10% on paper, financially anxious in real life. That gap is not a personal failure. It's a structural one, and it gets worse the further up you go. To reach the top 5% of individual earners, you need to clear $162,210 per year. For households, that's around $240,000. At this level, you're above Canada's federal top tax bracket, which kicks in at $253,414. Only a tiny fraction of Canadian workers ever reach that bracket. And to be in the top 1%, you need an individual income of $250,519. For households, the threshold is $306,710. A household income above $300,000, and you're only just inside the top 1%. A specialist physician married to a senior partner at a law firm could sit right at that line. No inheritance, no investment properties. Just two people at the absolute peak of demanding professions. The bar keeps rising. What put you comfortably in the top 1% a decade ago barely gets you there today. Now, here's where the story gets uniquely Canadian and uniquely uncomfortable. Income is only part of the picture. The part that actually defines wealth is net worth, and Canada has a net worth problem. The average Canadian household net worth crossed $1 million in 2024. Sounds incredible, except that over 50% of it is locked inside real estate, not in a TFSA, not in an RRSP, not in anything you can actually spend. It's sitting in the walls of a house in Toronto or Vancouver or Hamilton that has quadrupled in value since 2000. Here's what that actually means. You cannot sell 10% of your house to pay for your kids' university. You cannot liquidate part of your equity to cover a medical bill. You either sell the whole thing and move, or you don't touch it. A Deloitte study found that only 17% of near-retiree Canadians would even consider using their real estate to fund retirement, because culturally we don't see the house as money we can spend. We see it as the house. So what you have in Canada is millions of people who look wealthy on a spreadsheet but feel broke every single month because their wealth is frozen in an asset they live inside. Let's look at what real net worth looks like by age group. For Canadians under 35, the median net worth is $338,000. But strip out home equity, and for renters in that bracket, the median net worth is just $44,000. For the 35 to 44 group, it climbs to $658,000. Again, heavily real estate dependent. For ages 55 to 64, it reaches $1.6 million. That sounds like a lot. Until you realize that 55-year-old in Toronto is sitting on $900,000 in home equity that they will need to sell their home to access and then buy somewhere else to live. So it's not really 1.6 million in retirement wealth. It's 700,000 in actual liquid assets and a very expensive roof over their head. And to be in the top 1% of net worth in Canada, according to the Parliamentary Budget Office, you need a minimum of $7.5 million. Not 1 million, not 3 million, 7.5 million. There are about 4.4 million Canadian families with a net worth above $1 million. But the top 1% starts at 7.5 million. That gap tells you everything about wealth concentration in this country. Here's the part that reframes everything. On a global scale, Canada is already one of the wealthiest countries on earth. Our median wealth per adult sits around 151,000 US dollars. That puts us ahead of the United Kingdom, ahead of Germany, ahead of the United States. If you own a home and have any RRSP or TFSA savings at all, you are wealthier than the vast majority of the planet. The UBS Global Wealth Report found that over 80% of adults worldwide have a net worth below 100,000 US dollars. Nearly 40% have less than $10,000. So while you're stressing about whether you can afford a renovation or whether you're behind on your retirement savings, you are already in a position that billions of people on earth will never reach. That's not a reason to stop caring about your finances. It's context. And context is exactly what most financial conversations in Canada are missing. So why do so many Canadians feel broke, even when the data says they shouldn't? Part of it is comparison. If everyone on your street drives a new Highlander, your paid-off Civic feels embarrassing. If your coworker just bought a second property in Kelowna, your two-bedroom condo feels like failure. We don't compare ourselves to the global median. We compare ourselves to the people we see on Instagram, but there's something deeper going on. The financial anxiety Canadians feel isn't irrational. It's a rational response to a system that keeps moving the finish line. The income thresholds for the top 10% keep climbing. House prices kept climbing for 2 decades. The cost of living kept climbing. And wages for most Canadians didn't keep pace. So the feeling of running harder to stay in the same place, it's not in your head, it is happening. The difference between people who build real wealth and people who stay on that treadmill forever is one thing, knowing your actual number, not the number that makes you feel rich at a dinner party. Your real number, what you need to retire, what you need to feel secure, what you need to stop trading every hour of your life for money. Once you know that number, you stop chasing the horizon and you start building towards something real. If this video hit different for you, now subscribe and turn on notifications because there's a lot more where that came from.